how do you train a tow truck driver? We went and I made an outline and a syllabus, and we eventually went to talk to some of the tow companies in our company. We had 34 tow companies at one time, and so I went to Phoenix and I went to California and saw what they did for training, and they have training manuals, and so it took all of that, and I made up a syllabus, day 1, day 2, and day 1 was half paperwork and every one was half inside and half outside. One of the problems I saw in some of the training programs is they had the driver inside and grounding through the lessons, and it was so boring. I almost went to sleep looking at the training. And so I could see that most of the people who would be inclined to drive a tow truck are not really paperwork people. They're not really class learners. Matter of fact, we had a couple of drivers that couldn't even read. We found out later. But they faked it enough to get the job and ended up to be pretty good tow truck drivers. But so day 1 they did this, day 2, and it was a 3-week course. And one of the things I did is we put cars on the lifts. On every car, when they transport a car, on the frame, there is either a round hole or an oblong hole or someplace for the car transporter to hook his chain in. And then he tightens it down and holds the car down. And those are also good tie-down spots when you're towing a car, especially if you put it on the flatbed, and especially if you can't hook it on the axles anymore, or the front axle. You know, you say, well, the front axles have little rubber things, and they put the hooks through the rubber, and CV joints, kind of like mini U joints. They break them, and all kinds of stuff. So we had to teach everybody where the proper place to hook a car was. So I made these little short films where we painted every place on different models of car. They're in different places. We painted them white, and then we filmed and had a big stick and said, right there you do it, and then we did it. And we tried to, it was in the early days of movie camera stuff, but we tried to make it a little funny. And then there are certain places to park stuff out in the yard, and we walked out to the yard and showed the movie and where, and then later we took them out there. So then we took 3 cars and put them on their side in our north yard. They didn't take up much room because they were on the side. They were record cars that we owned, and so they could see, just walk right up to it, and they didn't have to look like that up on the lift or anything. They just walk right. That's where you put the chain, and then we give them a cluster hook or a mini J or something, put it in there. And so we had the classroom. We had one classroom teacher, and he would go over the basics, and then each driver had each new driver had an experienced driver that would take them out training after the first week. Then they were in their tow truck, and then usually by the first week we got their driver's license record back and the drug test and all that stuff, so that we could legally have them in the truck. And then at the end of every day, actually we had 50 drivers, and I tried to have five drivers in a squad, and then a squad leader, and that was the trainer. And we didn't always have 10 trainees. We usually had between 5 and 8 trainees, and so not everybody was training all the time. But we paid the trainers an extra $100 a week to be a trainer, and if their driver that they trained stayed with the company for 3 months, they got an extra $250 bonus. because a lot of guys would quit in the first month or two. But if they had someone that they could call, or they could talk to on the radio that would help them out when they get in a pickle or something, we found some trainers would go to the tow site and help walk the guy through of his guys. And at the end of every day, the trainer would turn in a sheet of paper, just a little form, on how the trainee did that day. And the teacher, quote unquote, in the classroom stuff from the first week, he would turn in what his opinion of. And that was okay, except that I talked to some of the trainees, and some of them were not very complimentary about their trainers. So then I had a form for them to fill out, a little half sheet of paper, on how they thought the trainer did. And we changed some trainers around a little bit. Some of them didn't think of it as a privilege. They thought it was extra work. And so pretty soon we had some pretty good trainers. And after the fellow, at the end of 3 weeks, then they would take a test. We'd put them in a tow truck, a wheel lift tow truck, and have them back into space and hook it up and put a hook up onto a flatbed and drop it off and drive around and take a drive around the neighborhood. And it was quite an inclusive test, and they had to pass that, and most of them passed that. A couple of them worked a couple more days and then they did it. We had a paperwork. One thing we had to do, you had to fill out the forms when you tow the car. You had to put the VIN number down, the license plate number down, the name, the addresses where you picked it up and where you took it to, and the odometers of the tow truck when you first got there, when you picked it up to tow, when you stopped towing. And so the forms were fairly complicated, and so we had a packet. We gave them all of them of sample forms, and then they would fill out forms. The first week they were in training, a couple of days they would fill out the forms, and then they'd just drive. And the last week, the trainer did all the driving, all the hooking up, and the trainee. And all the trainer would do was give them advice and stuff. And maybe if you're working one side of the truck, you work the other and hook up the chain and stuff. So it turned out that we had a lot of drivers that were trained very similarly. And sometimes when there was a lot of tows to be done in a certain area, we'd send 2 or 3 flatbed trucks out, and I'd go out to kind of see what was going on. And it was almost like they were dancing. They were all coordinated because they had all been taught the same moves. I mean, they walk back, and this is what you do first. And so one guy and 2 flatbed drivers would work together. They would load the cars on his truck, then they'd load the cars on that truck. And when you're putting a car on the stinger, you cross the chains, because when you go around the corner, if you lose a chain, then they'll keep, and if you get them like this, then one gets longer. And so they take the safety chains out of the back and slide them to each other, crisscross. It was kind of like the ballet. I mean, tow truck ballet or whatever. But it was really quite a good experience.